All right, let's talk about graphing a quadratic in standard form. Remember, quadratic is something that has a squared in it. So you might see something like this. Y equals 3x squared plus 4x plus 6. This equation is in standard form. And a more general way of writing this is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, a, b, and c certainly can be negative, but in this case, you can see that a is equal to 3, b is equal to 4, and c is equal to 6. So here's your a, here's your b, and here's your c. And just as a reminder that sometimes our parabolas can be happy faces, sometimes they can be narrow faces, sometimes they can be sad faces or narrow sad faces. Or we can talk about wide sad faces, and then we've also got wide happy faces. So we can have all sorts of different looking parabolas. Now, which one of these letters do you think tells you if it's happy or sad? Well, that is going to be the A. Okay, that's going to tell you if you have a happy face or a sad face. Here, this might be an example of A is greater than 0. A is positive. If it's a sad face, A is negative. A is less than 0. So if you prefer to write positive, you can. Negative, you can do that as well. Well, what about if it is a narrow happy face? Let me make something a little bit more drastic than that. So something like a narrow happy face. What type of A value do you think you have there? Well, in a situation like that, you'd have something like A equals 3, A equals 4, A equals 2, A equals 10. Some sort of A value that I would consider big. A wide happy face would be something like A equals 1/2, A equals 1/8, A equals 1/3. Some sort of fraction, a number less than 1 but greater than 0. Now the same exact thing is true for these sad faces, except there's going to be a negative in front. So this would be like an A equals -10 or A equals -4. And here you'd have something like A equals -1/2, A equals -1/4, etc. And we'll talk about how to find the vertex in the next slide. All right. All right, so I'm going to do some steps for this. And our first step is always going to be, step 1 is to find the vertex. To find the vertex, you're going to have a value that is -b over 2a for your x value. So your x is going to be -b over 2a. So let's go ahead and find that. So I'm going to have an A, a B, and a C. So my A is equal to 1, my B is equal to 8, and my C is equal to 15. Certainly, if you want, you could have that as step 0. I find the students don't necessarily need to do that step. They can just look. So what's a -b over 2a? Well, if my b is 8, what's a negative of an 8? Well, that's just going to be a -8 over 2 times, well, what's my a value? It's 1. So that's going to be a -8 over 2. Well, that's going to be equal to a -4. So what have I just found? I actually just found the x value. And so maybe for my step 1, I'll say find the x value of the vertex. Okay, so you're finding the x value of the vertex. Step 2, instead, we'll call that one find the y value of the vertex. Well, how do we always find this point right here? Well, what we do is we take our x value and we plug it in. So our step 2 is going to be to find, oh, I should have written that down there. Find the y value of vertex. Okay, again, what we do is we take this x value, we plug it in to get our y value. So my work will be right here. So I'm going to have parentheses anytime I plug in, right? If I'm plugging in for x, I need to put in parentheses. So that's -4 squared plus 8 times -4 plus 15. Now, this is huge. If you forget your parentheses and you plug in -4 squared into your calculator, you would just get -16, which is wrong. You have to remember your parentheses, and you'll see that a -4 squared gives you 16, a positive 16, because it's -4 times -4. Well, 8 times -4 is a -32, and then plus 15. So that's going to give me 16 minus 32 plus 15 gives me a nice value of -1. So this goes back here. So technically, really, the first thing you do is find the vertex, but I broke it down into 2 steps. One is finding the x value by doing -b over 2a. And then the second thing you would do is find the y value by plugging that x in. All right, now next thing I'd like to do is graph the vertex. So we'll go different color here, why not? Step 3. Graph vertex. All right, so my vertex is going to be -4, -1, which is located right here. All right, step 4 is going to be to draw the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry, if we go back to our first slide, is where we're cutting our parabola in half, where we have symmetry on both sides. Kind of like straight down your face, that both sides of your face look pretty much the same. In this case, they're exactly the same. So notice how the axis of symmetry goes through the vertex. So here, our axis of symmetry is just going to go straight through the vertex. And that's going to be the equation x equals, because it's a vertical line, and then we just take the x value from the vertex and write it down here. So the axis of symmetry is actually x equals -b over 2a, or you can just think of this as the x value of the vertex, which you already found. All right. All right, let's go ahead and go to our last step, which is going to be step 5. So step 5 is going to be to find another point. So let's go ahead and let's go purple. I feel like we haven't done purple yet. All right, so step 5 is going to be to find another point. And that point has to be really close to your vertex. So choose an x value close to your vertex x value. All right. Remember, step 4, it's not marked, but was to draw that axis of symmetry. All right, so here we go. We're going to choose another point that's close. Well, we could choose an x value of -3 or an x value of -5. Let's go ahead and let's choose, I don't know, how about -3? So we're going to have the equation -3 squared plus 8 times -3 plus 15. If you're confused what I just did, I just took this x equals -3 and I put it in everywhere I just saw x. Okay, now when I do that, I'm just going to pick up my calculator and do that. So don't forget your parentheses. If you do, you're going to get the wrong answer. It's probably the #1 mistake on these problems. I get 0. Okay, so what does that mean? That means I have the point -3, because that's the value I plugged in, comma 0. So that's right here. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead, and my sixth step and my seventh step are pretty quick, but my sixth step is going to be to plot the symmetrical point. So the symmetrical point is right here. And then my seventh one is going to be just real quickly, it's just going to be to draw. Seventh step is to draw the parabola. So in this case, it's a smiley face, it's going up. And you should always kind of pause and say, hey, should I have a smiley face? Well, that's a 1. So yeah, it should be a smiley face. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a few more on the next PowerPoint or the next video. This is just a really good slow introduction to one problem. Thanks for watching. Make sure you watch the next one.